Good evening and welcome back to Ernie's Tennis Channel. So the last video we were going over the best young emerging men's tennis players. And so now we have to give, credit where it's due to the ladies. So I love the women's tour because the matches are equally as entertaining as the men's matches. You have longer rallies. You have more players that are capable of winning a tournament in any given week. And so it's really exciting if you're a junkie like me to see how many great young players we have on the women's tour to challenge Serena, who just seemingly never goes away as that looming threat to win the Grand Slam every time. So let's get into it. First person on my list, this is going from my least likely to dominate to my most likely to dominate. I got Belinda Bencic from Switzerland. So she was a former #1 player as a junior. And she's got a great record against other top 10 players. She has a winning record against Osaka. She's 4-1. She's got a winning record against Pliskova, against Kerber. And so she's got a lot of experience and a track record of beating the high, caliber talent that's on the tour. She's 23, so she hasn't really taken that leap immediately from being a great junior to a dominant professional, as she just reached her first semifinal at a slam in 2019 at the US Open. But I feel like the future's really bright. She's just got unbelievable power, and there are some days where she just looks absolutely unbeatable no matter what the other person is doing. So I really like the upside of Belinda Bencic from Switzerland. Next, I have Sofia Kenin from America, the most recent Australian Open champion. Now, I love her game. I just haven't seen her long enough for me to have her jump higher. When Osaka came out a couple years ago and just took everyone by storm, people thought, okay, she's here, now she's just going to run away with it, and that hasn't been the case. So Sofia Kenin, I love her game. I think she has a lot of room to improve. She's got a lot of range. I'm happy that the American women have such a prominent, position on this list. And at 21 years old, already winning a slam, obviously her career can take off from here. But at the same time, women's players do mature a lot faster than men's players, who generally peak between 25 and 30, whereas women's players can be kind of dominant starting at age 18. And they can peak at 18 and never get better. So let's see where she goes in the future. But this wouldn't be a complete list if she wasn't on it. So I have her ahead of Bencic. I think as the 7th best player that is kind of emerging. Now, next I have Elina Svitolina from Ukraine. She has not won a Grand Slam title yet, but what I love about her is her camp. And so she's coached by Marcos Baghdatis. If you remember Federer's rise in the early 2000s and some of the great battles he had with Baghdatis, what a great coach he can be to her. And on top of that, she's dating Gael Monfils, one of the most exciting and talented players on the men's tour. So her hitting partners in her social circle is excellent, and I've really seen that improvement year over year. She's becoming a more and more dangerous player as time progresses, and even though she hasn't really put it all together yet, I think she's got the clear potential to be a dominant player, super rangy. She gets to every ball, and I really like where her career trajectory is heading. She's 25, a little bit older than the other players, but sometimes the late bloomers kind of have a more nuanced and artistic game when they finally have everything click. So I have her next. Now, after Svitolina, I have Simona Halep. She's still only 28 years old. She was the #1 player on the tour for a long time, controversially, because she wasn't really converting those weeks on tour as #1 into Grand Slam wins. She has won 2 Grand Slams, and she's shown some unbelievable performances, most notably her win at Wimbledon over Serena in 2019. That was probably the most thorough beatdown I've ever seen any player give Serena, and it's kind of surprising given I wasn't really associating with Halep as that one-shot, end the point player that she appeared to become in that match. So if she's able to play like that, she can win 10 Grand Slams. The problem is that she gets knocked out early because a lot of times she brings that inconsistency. So she's a little bit older. She has a track record of being a #1 player before. I don't think it's too late for her to capture many more titles. So I'm going to have to put her on the list here ahead of some of the other younger players I just mentioned. Now, in front of her, I had Naomi Osaka. Osaka is kind of an anomaly to me. When she first broke through and won the US Open in 2018 and then followed up with the 2019 win at Australian Open, I was kind of like, all right, the floodgates are open. It's her time. And she's kind of lost focus ever since then. A super intelligent player. You can tell that even though she doesn't really say a lot in her interviews, she's just an absolute genius. There's something about her. You can kind of just tell how intelligent she is. And I'm scared that she's so smart that she's getting bored with tennis already, because she's kind of already achieved everything you can, which is, dominating all the other players on the tour, and she's done it at such a young age. So I'm hoping that she's able to regroup and focus and commit herself to compete against herself, because I really don't think if she brings her best game, there really is any other competition. So Osaka could easily be the best player on this list, 10 years from now. Unfortunately, her trajectory kind of took a step back after it looked so promising just a couple years ago. Next, I got Coco Gauff at 16 years old. I mean, she's beaten some big time players in huge matches. She has a lot of room to grow. I want to see how she handles, the transition of expectations. Before, it was a cute story that she was 15 and beating other players, but now she's going to be expected to step in and be a champion. You had Martina Hingis at 17 win 3 Grand Slams. And after that year, she only won 2 more the rest of her career. So women's players, again, they peak a lot earlier than men's players. So Coco Gauff could just be the beginning of the greatest player we've ever seen, or she can be at her ceiling right now. So I have to see more from her, but if I'm just going to go based off of what does your gut instinct tell you watching someone play, I mean, she looks like basically a clone of Venus Williams who might be better earlier. So I really, really like Coco Gauff. Just ahead of her, I have Ashleigh Barty. Super fast, extremely athletic, has all the mental toughness in the world. What I like about Barty more than the other players that I mentioned on the list is that even if she isn't feeling it on a given day, she'll find a way to win the match. She's just able to will herself to wins. The mental toughness is like what I talked about last video with Medvedev. It doesn't matter how the match is playing out. She's going to find a way to win the game. She's going to find a way to break back and find herself winning matches that honestly maybe that day she shouldn't have won, but she willed herself to victory. Now, the most promising player on the tour, in my opinion, is Bianca Andreescu from Canada. I just love her power, and for how big of a player she is, she has great mobility. She's got a lot of humility, and even though she won a slam at age 19, she won the U.S. Open in her first appearance ever in the main draw there. That's never been done before. So she was the number 3 player in the juniors. She never hit number 1. She was never the best junior women's player. But she's talked about, committing herself on another level now that she maybe didn't have that commitment in the past earlier on. And I just see a focus from her and a mental toughness and just an overall game that really lends itself well. I don't think at her highs she'll be as dominant as some of these other players like Halep was in that single match against Serena, but I think over time, over the course of a decade, she'll be the most consistent and she'll find a way to win the most slams. So again, that is my list. As far as the best young players, what I like about the women's tour is that the top 10 definitely is a better reflection of who the best players on the tour are as opposed to the young men on the tour. Like I had Hyun Chung on my list for the best young men's players, and because of his injuries, he's like not even in the top 50 right now. You got Del Potro sitting there who can easily beat any player on any given day, but because of his injuries, he's kind of, not in the mix. So the women's tour, super entertaining. There's a lot of super great young players. I think the thing that may set the women's tour back a little bit is because there's such saturation in the market of young talent and so many new people win slams at every tournament that aren't Serena. It's hard for the public that may not watch tennis as much to really latch on to any single person. So Coco Gauff may be that person. She definitely is kind of like the media darling, at least in America. So I don't know what the perspective is like in other countries. But, overall, in a nutshell, Bianca Andreescu, my pick to be the most consistently dominant player in the next decade moving forward. And, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Serena in there. Who knows when she's going to retire? And it seems like whenever she plays, she's going to be the favorite, in the near future. So anyway, that's video number 2 of Ernie's Tennis Channel. Who are the best young women's players on the tour, and we'll start getting into some technique and some mental toughness and strategy on the videos to come as the lockdowns ease and as we're able to get back on the court. Have a great day.